capture the flag.
You know, I started watching and making YouTube videos around 2011. And at the time, I was obsessed with Black Ops 1 because of a social circle that I was a part of during college. Now, I had played the original Call of Duty on PC back in the day. I watched the X-Play review. I loved the single player. And I actually was pretty decent at the online. But I could only play it online after hours at my dad's office or at a friend's house. But I got a taste of multiplayer gaming. And it was the most addictive rush ever. Back then, again, I had a horrible network. And so some of my first multiplayer FPS stuff was like Unreal Tournament 2003 and like demo discs from PC Gamer. It was epic. And that eventually did like evolve into Call of Duty 4, which I played and replayed quite a bit. For my 360, I had a VGA adapter. And I pretty much played a lot of the 360 era on a 4x3 PC monitor. That was probably terrible, but I didn't care. Like, that was how I experienced Halo 3 and COD 4. And again, playing COD 4 online wasn't something I really got to do at all until I got to college. And my entire friend group during high school were into Halo 3. And so if I went over to a buddy's house, they were playing Halo 3 online. We would just load up split screen. I remember lifting and moving this giant CRT television into the living room so we had a bigger screen to play. It was so much fun. And I actually remember in the earlier parts of college, like driving home over a winter break or something, stayed at a relative's house midway, had a good dinner, watched a movie, and then like booting up COD 4, like just chilling in the laundry room with an air mattress and playing it until like the early morning hours, playing it online on that good internet. And it was so fun. I really miss being able to stay up late and then function the next day. That's gone. That's like, if I am up like super late, the next day is just trash. And so anyway, college begins and I have fast internet for the first real time in my life. And that first year of school, it was all Halo 3. I would try different games. I remember picking up Final Fantasy 13, being excited, then being kind of let down because Final Fantasy 10 was like my favorite ever. And trying to explain to my roommate, like, okay, well, this is why 13 is so different. He loved GTA 4 and San Andreas. He let me play through GTA 4. We would multiplayer GTA 4 together and just get in cars and do stupid stuff. It was a ton of fun. Then I would go down the hallway to another pod of friends, and I think I've shared this before. They would play like Smash Bros. Brawl after every single meal, like lunch and dinner. There'd be an hour-long session. It was kind of like putting your coin on the arcade machine saying, I get the next game. You know, it was just so much fun. But I didn't really know what was happening, that Call of Duty was this big deal. Like it was this explosion on YouTube. I was pretty much out of the whole MW2 loop. I wasn't around for that stuff. I wasn't watching YouTube during that time. Life wasn't really about gaming. I enjoyed it. I loved playing Halo 3, but I was obsessed with like building a social circle, trying to mountain bike, DJing at the time. I know. I was really overcommitted and school was the last priority, but it was a lot of fun. Then the sophomore year of college rolls around and that Smash Bros. Brawl group, they all got a house together off campus, like 7 or 8 people. And it was a really sick house. And I remember in their living room, they basically had a Black Ops 1 360 going like 24/7. Every time I went over, somebody was sitting on the couch. It was like a shared account. They were just grinding, playing. And it was like days or weeks went by before I like actually sat down and noticed. And then I watched somebody playing like Sticks and Stones and then TDM and seeing all the like class variations, the maps, everything. It looked so fun. And I was very familiar with COD 4, but just seeing how much it had progressed, I went home and I started to look up Black Ops videos on YouTube. And that was it. That was the moment that I discovered gaming YouTube really was a thing. I landed on Machinima Respawn creators, Woody's Gamer Tag, FPS, Russia, Onslaught. I didn't bump into Hutch or Nanners for a while, but I began subscribing, I began watching, and I really started to notice this thing of people uploading and sharing these stories with people. And it super resonated. I worked at a TV station in high school, and video was a big focus during college. And I was like, this is it. I don't know what, but I want to be a part of this. Like seeing eventually Machinima Respawn where they're in LA, they're shooting these cool little production shorts out there. I was like, that's what I want to do. I want it to work for something like that, a TV station, but with gaming at the core. So I ordered a Hapag PVR, and I began uploading over the summer between, I guess, probably sophomore and junior year. I don't quite remember. Maybe it was a different set of years, but I was uploading mainly Call of Duty and not much Halo. Okay. Reach was around, and I remember a good high school friend who was like a year or two younger, loved Halo. And he picked up a copy of Reach for me, and we would just split screen co-op that thing all the time. He got it. He was part of that era that understood, like, bro, you don't just play Halo online with your friends. You go to their house and you split screen multiplayer online with your friends. I don't know why. Somebody tell me if I'm correct, but it always felt like when you were split screening, especially Reach, aim assist felt stronger. Maybe that was just a total placebo effect, but I kind of remember when they did the Halo 4 MLG Dallas event, they didn't have enough setups. It was like the last event for Halo for MLG. And so they were doing split screen on some of the pool play, which is just hilarious if you go back and see like T-Squared split screening with his teammate sharing a tiny little monitor. Oh, man. But I loved Reach as well, but I was mainly just uploading Call of Duty. I had no idea what I wanted to do with this, whatever. I just wanted to create. Now, this was a hard time for me. I was very lonely in college. I spent the first year building a social circle with people whose values were like nowhere near mine. I really just wanted to DJ and to be successful as like producing music and getting to do that stuff. I grew up playing instruments like drums and piano, but everybody was obsessed with EDM at the time. There was no rock. There were no like real live bands. It was just this pure obsession with EDM. And I liked Daft Punk and Justice and Mastercraft. And so, okay, I dabbled on that side. And anyway, that social circle that I had built, that second year, I was like, no, these people are not my vibe, not my jam. And I didn't really put a ton of effort at that point into building a new social circle. Mountain biking was like my main outlet. I had done a ton of racing, and I knew I wanted to kind of continue to race, but where I was going to school, the riding was terrible. You could only ride certain trails on like Wednesdays and Sundays. The rest of the time it was hikers. And trails weren't that good. I never spent the time getting to know like the college riding scene or the collegiate team to learn all the good like bootleg trails, which is basically at the time how all the good riders rode around there. They just were on pirate trails. And so I just buried myself into YouTube, Halo, and COD, and that kind of became my community. And I know it's parasocial, and I look back and I'm like, man, you could have done really well just like putting some effort in to build more of that social circle at that time. But I'm like crazy introverted, and I just wasn't going to put the effort in to do it. I made a sniping tip video for Halo Reach, and that got the attention of a really nice person who was just starting a community channel called Halo Zone. They invited me to be a director. At that time, there were, I don't know, like 9 or 10 of us. And we would all upload to this one community channel, Halo gameplay commentaries. And I got to know those directors. Some of them became lifelong friends, people I've done podcasts with. And yeah, it was really cool. We would all upload like monthly to this community channel, and the vibe was insane. It was so cool. Everybody who was doing it at the time, the monetization was just coming into the picture at the time. People weren't making it as their full-time career. This is the early eras where like the Hutches and the Nanners were transitioning into making it their full-time job, right? But it wasn't this thing that many people were doing. I mean, to get partnered, my goodness, like I don't even remember who I had to reach out to. I had to apply for a partnership through Machinima Respawn. There were only a few multi-channel networks that could get your channel monetized. The whole monetization system that exists now wasn't there. It was like you needed to know a guy, and then you had to do a really good pitch to the guy, and then hopefully you would sign a solid contract. And like the bad Machinima contracts were like a 60-40 split back then. I don't remember. I think I eventually got like a 90-10 split. They don't even exist anymore. But wow, throwback. I haven't thought or talked about that for a while. It was so fun. And I was just, I don't know, wrapped up in it. And we weren't really talking about the state of the game. It was Halo 3, Halo Reach days. And yeah, there were some people who were like moaning and complaining about Reach, because Reach was rough until No Bloom No Sprint, especially for competitive stuff. I know there's plenty of people who love vanilla settings who can lose it in the comments, but I am a firm believer that title update settings for Reach were fantastic. And if they were there sooner, it would have been better. Halo 3 Repopulate Day was something I was invited to stream for Halo Zone. I did that on my Twitch stream way back in the day, and I think I streamed like 10 or 11 hours. It was this event where everybody were getting on a Halo 3, bump up the numbers, and I just ran customs all day with viewers in the lobby, and then I would interview Halo Zone directors. And I think we had like 700 or 800 concurrents during that stream. It's the biggest stream I've ever been a part of. I think Planet Destiny raided me once after their podcast ended, and that was pretty similar, but like I was not a streamer. I streamed a little bit for fun in college, but that was one of my favorite memories ever of Halo, is just playing octagons and crazy multi-team customs, and it was awesome. Anyway, I share all that to then move into, okay, Halo 4 started to be revealed, and clearly it was a very different game. And a lot of the conversations and discussions at this time shifted to like the state of the game and the population, and what do you think this is going to be, and how this is going to like measure up for the players. And I didn't really care for that transition. It went from talking about like just core real life stuff. Nobody was really like that obsessed with the state of the game. We were just sharing like stories and life things with one another. And it kind of turned into the gaming weatherman phase that we have today, where it's like, new patch incoming. Here's how people will probably respond to it. The update is bad. Look out for sad mood the next like 3 weeks until the next blog post. See you again. And like that's still the paradigm for a lot of people who cover live servicey kind of games. And then Destiny 1 came out, which was incredible, and I fell in love with it, and I played so much for 3 years, and I have no regrets. It was a ton of fun, but a very different kind of game. And then when 2017 hit, I think that's Destiny 2, that felt like a major step backwards, and like having to go through the same stuff that we just went through with Destiny 1 and like restarting over on so many quality of life things and weird shifts was funky. From basically 2017 on, aside from Titanfall 2 and Battlefront 2, there just were not a ton of FPS games that I really liked anymore. Once money came into the picture too, with YouTube, and it became a bigger focus, community channels basically ended, and I miss that vibe. And I understand it. Like, there are no real easy tools to distribute. You got 10 people uploading to a channel and there's monetization. There's no easy way to distribute that revenue, right? And it just is not a thing anymore. But back then it was a community. It was about playing with friends. And I've talked about a lot why I've kind of stepped away from multiplayer games the last 2 years. I could see myself going back, but ultimately I didn't want to be a gaming weatherman, which it felt like everybody had become, regardless of if you were uploading YouTube content or not. You were thrust into that conversation about like, what do you think about the state of the game? And there are plenty of people who didn't, but okay, like with Infinite, I actually really like the gameplay in Infinite. I deeply enjoyed that loop. I hate how jank that game always felt. Even to this day, if it had like the Bungie level of tight performance, I really think it would have been way more successful, because the gameplay loop, they managed to mash a lot of things together, some modern, some classic, and I feel like they did a decent job. It was just a lot of the periphery things, the tech, the lack of support, so many things. And I know I've talked a lot about stopping, but I think through these things to just remember, like, community is at the core of it. If you lose sight of that community element, that vibe, that playing on the couch with your friends, unless you're absolutely in love with the game that you're playing, I don't know. I think we're in a very strange era for FPS games and like multiplayer FPS things. I don't know if we'll ever get that back. I'm happy I got to experience it, and I don't look back negatively on any of these things. I'm like super excited, like reminiscing about these old stories. And maybe I just aged out of it. That could honestly be most of this. But as I look back and I try and think through, okay, well, what were the important things there? Why did that era stand out? It's people. It's not talking about a state of the game, an update, industry practices, all this stuff that just is out of our control, first of all. It's very real. Don't get me wrong. Like, I think there's plenty of things wrong with the industry and whatnot, but I liked this hobby much more when I just didn't care. It obviously wasn't as invasive back then, so it was easier to not care. I'm sure that you can cultivate that, but you have to work really hard. The couch co-op thing, aside from Nintendo, there's not a lot of companies, right, that are really still continuing to push and put that in their games. I'm sure there is. I'm just saying off the top of my head right now, Nintendo still has your Mario parties, and it's a ton of fun to play Mario Kart with friends on the couch. I think there will be a time where I want to go back and play an FPS game just because it's fun. I haven't made some weird line in the sand or like, I'll never do this again, but I was just watching old MW2 gameplay the other day and it looked fun. And I was like, yeah, it was really casual. It was a different era. It wasn't esports. It wasn't streaming. There wasn't like content or growing any of that stuff. It was just kind of feelings test wise. What are you enjoying and what are you having fun with and why are you playing it? And ultimately, I think it spawned from the fact that there was a friend group who had an Xbox running in the living room like 24/7. And even just thinking about that like brings a huge smile to my face. So if you get those community opportunities, man, lean into it, relish it, cherish it, all that stuff. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you again very soon.